Aztán akkor nézzünk meg egy másik videót a Legendary Drops-tól. Azért az emberek azok meg vannak őrülve az miatt, mert a Larian Studio az AI-t használ néhány konceptarthoz. Na de ugye itt kőkemény félrevezetések vannak. Ugye az az ember, a vicc az, hogy készített egy ember velük riportot, és az az ember totálisan félrevezeti az embereket, az olvasókat, vagy a hallgatókat. De mindjárt meglátjátok.
This is unreal.
Nagyon kemény.
I'm doing my best to stay collected. It's taken a lot more effort than I thought that it would. I've been watching over the past couple of days as a section of the internet has lost its collective mind over something that largely isn't even real. And I'm going to prove that to you guys. We have two studios, Larian Studios and Sandfall Entertainment, that up until just about 5 minutes ago were some of the most beloved studios in the industry, delivering two of the greatest games that we've seen in the past decade that are now finding themselves being treated like they are enemies of the state.
Yeah.
Not because it's some bad release, no bad monetization or anything like that, no layoffs. No, it's because a couple of articles came out, misleading articles, that revealed that these studios have been using generative AI in their early concept phases, early ideation, brainstorming, placeholder assets, things of that nature. Or in the case of Larian, they will...
Szóval nem a fejlesztéshez, hanem a korai fázisába a konceptartoknak. Ahhoz használtak AI-t.
Will be experimenting with it in limited capacity. That's it. That's all it took to set off the internet in one of the most unhinged reactions that I think that I have probably ever seen, where immediately nuance just vanished and went straight out the window, and projection just solidified into, well, their own truth. Generative AI has been one of the biggest hot button issues. It is incredibly emotionally charged. It makes a lot of sense why it is. It has its fingers in just about everything right now: art, labor, authorship, job security, infrastructure, the environment. It's just about everywhere. And it's a subject that I think a lot of people already walk into primed to be outraged. And when that outrage collides with very sloppy framing from games media and incomplete information, it really doesn't take a lot for this entire thing to just spin off the rails. And that's exactly what happened. So today, I want to talk about how that happened. I want to walk through all of that. I want to talk about how a misleading piece of journalism set off the fuse when it comes to this entire thing, how games media just kind of piled on instead of slowing down to make sure all that information was true, and why so much of this outrage feels a lot less organic and a lot more manufactured. Today's video is sponsored by Displayed, and there's a lot to be excited about right now. There are 33 designs, which are either live right now or should be live in the next couple of days, so definitely make sure to check those out.
Durva, ezt mondom, az olyan emberek vannak most kiakadva ugye a Larian Studión, ez miatt az AI balhé miatt, amit szándékosan félrevezetett ugye egy reporter, egy journalist, ugye, akik imádják a fasz ízét a szájukba. Mi meglepő? Ismét.
If you want something more personal, you can even upload your own images and use their custom display feature, perfect for gifts. Use code LEGENDARY at checkout, hit the link in the description, and check out what's new. Expedition 33 is on the way. The ground for this was already primed for drama long before AI ever even entered into the conversation. If you guys have been online, you've seen the resentment brewing around Expedition 33. In the days right after the Game Awards, there were a lot of people that were angry that their favorite games didn't win, so they started lashing out, calling it an Unreal Engine 5 asset flip, dismissing it as another white person game, and even accusing it of being backed by...
Another white person game, bazd meg. Érted? Komolyan, ez hihetetlen. Miért van az, hogy a feketék nem rasszisták? Hogy van az, ha ilyet mondana egy fehér ember például a South of Midnight-ra, ami ugye egy another black game, ugye, akkor az meg mi a fasz? Miért van az, hogy tényleg az ajtó csak egyfelé hajlik, csak egyfelé nyílik? Ez miért nem rasszizmus? Kurva gáz.
The IDF. What is wrong with these people? So when articles
What
started
the
dropping
fuck?
mentioning Larian's use of AI, it didn't really
Aha,
matter what
Istenem.
was actually said. Blood was already in the water, and instead of slowing down, people just rushed in swinging. Now, much of this is being based off of a post from Kamu where he had said Larian CEO confirms that the studio is using generative AI to explore ideas, flesh out PowerPoint presentations, develop concept art, and write placeholder text. He said that
Igen.
there won't be any AI generated content in Divinity. Everything is human actors. We write everything ourselves. That set off a cascade of increasingly unhinged reactions, retweets
What the
claiming no
fuck?
good ideas could ever come from AI generated art, people insisting that Larian's statements were just a smokescreen for quietly getting rid of their concept artists. Others then doubled down, falsely claiming that Larian isn't even hiring concept artists anymore and that the majority of the fan base hates AI, so they just need to get rid of what they're doing.
Basszeg.
And then the game of telephone really kicks in. Suddenly, the claim isn't experimentation or placeholders anymore. Now, Larian is supposedly generating all of their concept art with AI. Then it turns into
Komolyan.
they're just going.
Én olyan kurva egyszerűen megoldanám azt, hogy ki... Érted? Én azoktól az emberektől elvenném a szavazati jogot, akik azt mondják, hogy akik most az AI-jal dobálóznak, hogy a Larian Studio mindent ahhoz használ. Ezek szimplán nem érdemlik meg azt, hogy szavazzanak. Gondolj bele, egy ilyen ember szavaz, érted, bármire is, bármiről legyen szó. Egy ilyen ember szavaz, bármire is legyen szó. Még akkor se kell, érted, még akkor se akarom tudni ezt az illetőt, ha ugyanarra szavazra, amire én. Inkább ne szavazzon semmire.
To fire the employees who don't use it, each step further from reality than the last, but said with that much more confidence every single time. Other games journalists then jumped in to keep the momentum going. Gene Park, for example, threw more fuel on the fire by dragging Sandfall into it, saying that the Expedition 33 team freely admitted to using AI after the game just won one of the biggest hauls in Game Awards history. And from there, the discourse just completely detaches from reality. We end up with some of the most aggressive virtue signaling imaginable. Claims that Larian and Sandfall were engaging in technology that specifically harms black communities for reasons that were never clearly expressed.
What the fuck? Ezek normálisak, bazd meg. Úristen.
But very confidently asserted anyway. Then we have the next logical escalation and them being labeled fascist with an alleged former employee coming forth claiming that
Hát az
Larian
nem egy nagy
Studios
dolog.
employs outright fascists, going further to allege
Azt
that they
már
were
mindenki
assaulted at
használja, az
work
már
and
ilyen
nobody did anything
overused
about
word.
it. An account, mind you, that was immediately deactivated after they made these claims.
Na, mi
Now, I want to
meglepő.
remind you guys, by the way, that all this is tracing back to a single tweet, a tweet that was sourcing itself from a Bloomberg article with almost none of these subsequent claims being grounded in anything
Így
that was
van.
actually said. The specific allegation that was doing the most damage was that Larian is using generative AI to develop concept art. That's where most of this anger is coming from. That's the line that people.
És ugye azok az emberek, akik imádják a faszízét, akiknek ugye nem engedném, hogy szavazzanak, elvenném tőlük a szavazati jogot, azok az emberek, akik nem tudják használni az internetet, és inkább hisznek valaki másnak, aki összehoz valami fasságot, mint hogy felmennének a Larian stúdiónak a Twitterére, és elolvasnák ott, hogy miről van szó. Ugye, azok az emberek, tudod, akik azt mondják, hogy nem, a hangok a fejembe jobban tudják, mint te. Kurva anyádat.
Latched onto. And the problem is that's not what was said at all. Something that I only realized after I dug deeper myself because I thought it was strange when Sven Vinka stepped in and angrily responded to the backlash himself directly saying that, holy fuck, guys, we are not pushing hard for or replacing concept artists with AI.
Ugye ez a Sven Vinke, ez a Larian stúdiónak a feje. Ugye az a fehér srác. Bazd meg. Még ő is, érted? Holy fuck, guys! Mekkora? Komolyan. Nem kell hallgatnod senkire. Csináld azt, amit csinálsz. Adjátok ki a játékot úgy, ahogy kiadtátok a Baldur's Gate 3-at. Elő fogom rendelni a Divinity 3-at is. Ahogy a Baldur's Gate 3-at is előrendeltem. Ez is a tipikus olyan játék, amiből láttál 5 másodpercet, és tudod, hogy kell. Szard le, hogy ki mit gondol. Szard le azt, amit én gondolok. Nyugodtan. Hozd meg a saját döntésedet. De ugye itt van a source. Nem kell messzire menni. Rá kell keresni. És láthatod, érted, hogy nem az van, amit valami idióta, kékhajú, na mindegy. Bazzeg, ma túl sok energiám van.
With inflection on pushing hard. I then tracked that line back to its source and found the Bloomberg article written by everybody's favorite games journalist, Jason Schreier, where he had paraphrased an interview between the two of them with a line writing, "Under Vinka, Larian has been pushing hard on generative AI, although the CEO says that the technology has not led to big gains in efficiency. He says that there won't be any AI-generated content in Divinity. Everything is human actors. We are writing everything ourselves, but the creators often use AI tools to explore ideas, flesh out PowerPoint presentations, develop concept art, and write placeholder text. The use of generative AI has led to some pushback at Larian, but I think this is a point everyone at the company is more or less okay with the way we're using it," Vinka said. That phrasing Schreier is using...
Ugye ez a srác egyébként, ugye a Larian stúdiónak a feje. Ugye. És ennyi. Érted? Szóval nem jobb az már, mint hogy arra használják az AI-t, hogy a fejükben lévő képet sokkal gyorsabban AI segítségével tudod, kinyomtassák, hogy képernyőre vigyék, és nézd, erre gondoltam, így kéne megcsinálni. Érted? Ez egy tök jó dolog, mert nem kell érted a konceptartnak, a artistának azzal foglalkoznia, bazd meg egy hetet, hogy csináljon egy darab papírra ugye valamilyen konceptartot. És ugye ez felpörgeti a fejlesztést is.
Gives a very specific impression, one that paints Sven as forcing AI onto the company, onto its workers, and into their games. Schreier gloated later on Blue Sky, saying that if he had known that this article would have been so controversial, he might have expanded it to include the full transcript, to which he then posts the full transcript, and I'm going to read it to you guys just to prove how bad faith this framing is and how ridiculous all of this is. Schreier starts with, "Speaking of efficiency, you spoke a bit about generative AI, and I know that's been a point of discussion on the team too. Do you feel like it can speed up production?" Sven responds, "In terms of generation, like whiteboxing, yes, there are things.
Yes.
But I'm not 100% sure you're actually seeing speed ups that much. You're trying more stuff, having tried stuff out. I don't actually think it accelerates things because there's a lot of hype out there. I haven't seen, oh, this is really going to replace things. I haven't really seen that yet. I've seen where you get initially excited, oh, this could be cool, and then you say, in the end, it doesn't really do the thing. Everything is human actors. We're writing everything ourselves. There's no generated assets that you're going to see in the game. We're trying to use generated assets to accelerate whiteboxing, but I mean, to be fair, we're talking about basic things to help level designers." Schreier continues, "What about concept art?" Sven responds, "So that's being used by concept artists. They use it the same way that they would use photos. We have like 30 concept artists at this point."
Meg érted, meg ő is mondta, ugye, hogy kísérleteznek ezzel. Mármint, érted, ők is kíváncsiak arra, hogy mire képes az AI. Érted, miért ne próbálnák ki? Hát, ha segít, ha jobbá teszi a produktot. Nem? Ez semmi nincs ebben, semmi egetrengető. Hogy jöttek ide?
Or something like that. So we bought a boutique concept art firm at the moment that everybody was reducing them because they were going to AI. In our case, it just went up. If there's one thing that artists keep asking for, it's more concept artists. But what they do is use it for exploration. Jason then says, the other thing that I've seen that being used for more and more is placeholders, stub dialogue. Sven responds, well, yes, so that depends on the scripter. In our case, what we do is whiteboxing, which means scripts put stub text in there. Some scripters will probably use ChatGPT, some will write it themselves. It's really up to them. Schreier then says, but you found that it's not actually speeding things up, it's just allowing for more experimentation. Sven responds, well, in a sense, it speeds things
Tessék,
up because
ott
your
van.
experimentation is broader. But I mean, it's not as if the dialogues are suddenly being written faster. And on the contrary, it's not as if you're seeing the scripting going faster. What's happening is that there's just a lot more stuff being done. But I mean, if you've used ChatGPT, it helps you organize things, get you a faster Jason interrupts until it screws up. Sven responds, right. You always have to alter it yourself. I mean, I'm a non-native English, so it's easier for me to make my phrases without mistakes, so it helps with that. Jason responds to write your company emails. Sven responds, no. I mean, like putting it there to see, okay, this is a clean version of my text. So what's happening is I write with worse grammar now, and then I can use it to clean up my text, and then I have to go over it again and clean
De
it up
amúgy ez
again.
tök jó.
Schreier, that seems like it would take more time. Sven, yes, I know, but I have a feeling like my phrases are better. Schreier, your English is good. You don't really have to worry that much. Sven then goes on to say, I think experimentation, whiteboxing, some broader whiteboxing, lots and lots of applications and retargeting and cleaning and editing. These are things that just really take a lot of time. So that allows you to do more. So there's a
Így
lot of
van.
value in terms of the creative process itself. It helps you in doing things, but I haven't seen the acceleration. So I'm really curious to see, because there's a lot of studios that said this is going to accelerate. If you look at the state of the
Ennyi igazából, szóval most érted, fogja, és mit tudom én, egy koncept art helyett, érted, bemutat 10-et. De ez nem feltétlenül jelenti azt, hogy gyorsabban haladnak a munkák.
art of video games today, these are still in their infancy. Will they eventually be able to manage to do that at large scale? I don't know how much data centers they're going to need to be able to do it. Jason responds, it doesn't seem like it's causing more efficiency, so why use it? Sven responds, this is a tech-driven industry, so you try stuff. You can't afford to not try things, because if somebody else finds the golden egg and you're not using it, you're dead in this industry.
Így van. Ha bejön, érted? Akkor bazd meg, 50 millió dollár helyett, érted, keresnek 80 millió dollárt, nem? Hülyék lennének nem kipróbálni, hülyék lennének nem kísérletezni ezekkel a dolgokkal. És ez egy tök jó.
Schreier responds, okay, but the downside is that it's so poisonous, controversial to players, to artists, to creative people in a way that other tech isn't. Maybe Photoshop used to be back in the day? Sven closes with, I think you'd find the same argument back in the days for a lot of things, right? Anything that has been automated has always been considered. I think that's part of the job to make sure that you are competitive in state of the art. So if you don't look at the state of the art, you will eventually regret it. That's going to be even worse for the developers. These rat fuck journalists. I'm so beyond disgusted right now. None of this context was shared in the article or in any of the drama that we've seen online. And man, would this context have gone a really, really long way. Oh, man, if I would have known this article would have been so controversial, I would have actually shared the context of the conversation that I had and maybe have written the article the right way.
Így van. Fogta ez az ember, bazd meg, és kiadta az artikelt úgy, hogy kifacsarta, hogy kivett belőle olyan dolgokat, hogy ezt mondom, miért pazarlod az idődet, hogy olyan emberekre hallgatsz, akik pénzt kapnak azért, hogy azt mondják, amit megmondanak neki, hogy mondjanak. Vagy pedig azt mondják, érted, ami éppen kipattan a fejükből, hogy elküldjék az ő üzenetüket neked. Hogy rád erőszakolják az üzenetöket. Miért? Mindegy. Mindegy. Valakinek jó ízű a fasz. Az nem én vagyok.
How do you get out of anything that Sven said as Sven being hard on AI? Pushing hard on AI. Using it for concept art. Getting rid of concept artists. The dude even says, and this is the part that disgusts me the most because it only comes out now. I'll be honest, I'm probably going to be the only person that's talking about this right now. They bought an art firm. They bought a concept art firm. He literally says, if there's one thing that my artist asks for, it's more artists. He goes out and gets it for him. They're using AI like it's a toy. Something to just get the juices flowing. Like they're looking at Google images or looking at things on Pinterest.
Érted, most te simán el lehet képzelni, érted, hogy a concept artist ott ül, ö, tollal a kezébe, érted, rajzolja a kis maga dolgát, aztán így, oké, vajon ezt hogy képzelném el egy kicsit másképpen, és ahelyett, hogy lerajzolja, fogja, aztán berakja az AI-ba, és az megmutatja neki. És akkor látja, hogy ez most tetszik-e neki, vagy sem. De ez nem azt jelenti, hogy most a concept artist az nem ül ott, és nem viszi papírra azt, amit csinál. Komolyan, bazdmeg, a sok fogyatékos geci.
He brings up white boxing, which makes it really difficult for people that are not in the games industry to fully understand. It's essentially like concept design. You're thinking about where object placement could go. They're basically just using
Így van.
random shapes to come up with an idea of what a level could look like well before the level
Köszönöm.
itself is ever
Ugyanezt
even
mondtam.
designed. It's essentially the same thing that they're doing for their writing as well, for their conversations and dialogue. They're essentially just using ChatGPT for formatting. Man, they blew this thing wide open.
Ja.
And the entire time, Schreier is trying to bait this into the most, in the worst way possible. It's so poisonous. It's so terrible. It's so controversial. Everybody hates it. Why would you use it? Because if they don't use it, they could lose their company. Because they don't know if the technology is worth anything or not. They have to
Így
test
van.
it and try it and see if it works. He even says that he's not even sure if it's going to work himself. He said it multiple times. But somehow he's hard on AI right now.
Komolyan.
I can't believe that people actually let themselves get so worked up over something that's
És ezt mondom, és vannak emberek, akik inkább az ilyen journalistekre, erre az emberre hallgat, aki ezt az artikült megírta, ahelyett, hogy fogná, fölmenne bazd meg a Larian stúdiónak a honlapjára, vagy a Twitterére, és ott megnézné, ott elolvasná azt, hogy mi volt eredetileg.
largely not even real. And all of this has just been perpetuated by artists and journalists on the internet because they're the ones that are the most at risk right now from, granted, the misuse of this technology, but also the proper use of it if you're not good at your job. This is not like Activision going out and selling microtransactions that are essentially just grok images. That's not the same thing at all. And I think that's indicative of the work from these companies. Look at Expedition 33. Look at Baldur's Gate 3. It's not like these games are suddenly the...
Meg hát ugye persze, hogy szúrja, érted, böki a csőrét a köcsögnek, hogy hogy az elmúlt 3 évben, érted, ez évben egy low budgetes indie játék nyerte a Game of the Year-t, 2 évvel ezelőtt meg egy közepes, de nem olyan high budgetes turn-based Dungeon and Dragon játék nyerte a Game of the Year-t. És között az év között van egy játék, amiről már senki nem beszél. Ugye? Milyen érdekes, hogy azok a játékok tényleg, amiket a playerek is elfogadnak, és mindenkinek tetszik, ezek az emberek bazdmeg csak belekötnek. Amivel semmi baj nincsen. Csak az a baj, hogy rengeteg a faszopó.
worst games in the entire industry now. These companies have not meaningfully changed in any way except for the narrative that people are essentially projecting onto them. These companies that are making good games are not the enemy here. And I think that it's time for people to wake up to that. Just last weekend, both Larian Studios and Sandfall Entertainment were coming off of near universal praise at the Game Awards. Sandfall all but swept the entire show, with Expedition 33 landing as one of the best games this year. Larian, meanwhile, announced Divinity, the pseudo-sequel reboot of their original series, something that people have been begging for since Baldur's Gate.
Meg hát ezek az influencerek, meg ezek a journalistek vajon miért védik, érted, az ilyen hatalmas triplás fejlesztő kompaniket, cégeket. Hát azért, mert ugye azok voltak azok, amik hatalmas pénzeket fizettek nekik a jó kritikáért. A Sandfall Entertainment kurvára, valószínűleg ugye ők egy indie stúdiók, valami $10 millió csinálták meg a játékot, érted, az Expedition 33-t. azok nem fizettek senkinek azért, hogy jó legyen a kritika, hanem megnyerték az embereket, megnyerték a vásárlókat. Itt nem olyan játékról van szó, mint a Star Wars Outlaw, ahol az Ubisoft mennyi? 6 darab influencert ö, konkrétan lefizetett, kirepülőztetett, érted? Disneylandbe, fizette nekik az utat, a szállást, az egészet fizették konkrétan, érted? Egy egész ilyen Star Wars körutat adtak azoknak a influencereknek azért, hogy jó kritikát írjanak, hogy jó, hogy promózzák a játékot az influenceren keresztül. Hogy persze, hogy ezek az emberek sírnak, hogy ilyen játékok, amik nem fizetnek ugye az influencereknek, meg az újságíróknak, megnyerik a vásárlókat.
3 took over the industry. And that's not an exaggeration, by the way. Baldur's Gate 3 still isn't talked about in the past tense more than 2 years after its release. It's still averaging over 60,000 concurrent players on
Ja,
Steam
bazd
every
meg.
single day and just crossed 20 million copies sold. That kind of staying power does not happen by accident. Both Expedition 33 and Baldur's Gate 3 have come to represent something that players have been missing. Games that feel like games again. No trend chasing, no
Így van.
monetization nonsense, just confident, well-made titles that put the craft first and remind people why we fell in love with video games. For a brief moment, all that goodwill was real, and then it just vanished almost overnight. The moment that this conversation shifted towards AI, the most volatile topic in this industry, both studios were treated like villains. That tone had flipped almost instantly. Praise turned to suspicion, admiration turned into accusation. After a full day of the internet spiraling, Sven Vinka finally returned to respond again.
De tudod mit? Tudod, miért jó az, hogy ezek az emberek sírnak olyan játék miatt, mint a Baldur's Gate 3, vagy egy olyan cég miatt, mint a Larian? Azért, mert ez reklám nekik. Mert azok az emberek, akiknek van tényleg 2 agysejtnél több, azok most ránéznek ugye a Baldur's Gate-re ez miatt, és elgondolkodnak rajta, hogy megvegyék. És elgondolkodnak rajta, hogy ki kéne próbálni. Tényleg, egy 3 éves játékról beszélünk, és 24 órás peakbe 65 000-en játszanak vele. Érted? 2 éve, lassan, majdnem 3 éve, érted? 875 000-en játszottak vele csak Steamen. És ebben még nincsen benne az Xbox és a PlayStation. És 24 órás peaket tartja, basszus, már mióta, nézd meg. 24 órás peaket tartja konkrétan all time. 83 000, érted? Nincs olyan nap, amikor lemegy az all time peakje, érted, ilyen 60 000 alá. Lassan egy 3 éves játéknak. Eszméletlen. 55 000. 60. Ugye? Egy kurva jó játékról beszélünk. Tessék, meg lehet nézni ezt is. Ugye? És ezért fizetett ugye a Disney. Vagy ezért fizetett az Ubisoft ugye az influencereknek egy egész Star Wars körutat. Disneylandben meg mindennel együtt. Ezért félnek az influencerek, ezért pattognak ilyen játékokon, mint a Baldur's Gate. Mert ugye a Larian stúdió az nem fizetett nekik. Az Ubisoft, meg a Disney, viszont igen.
saying it's been a full week since we announced Divinity, our next RPG, and a lot has become lost in translation. Larian's DNA is agency. Everything we work towards is to the benefit of our teams, games, and players, a better workday, and a better game. Our success has come from empowering people to work in their own way and bring the best out of their skills and crafts so that we can make the best RPGs we can possibly make. In that context, it would be irresponsible for us not to evaluate new technologies. However, our processes are always evolving, and where they are not inefficient or fail to align with who we are, we will make changes. To give you more insight, we will do an AMA featuring our different departments after the holiday break, in which you will get the opportunity to ask us questions you have about Divinity and our dev process directly. A measured response, transparent, open to scrutiny, and somehow that still isn't enough. You still had people that were responding with takes like, bro is taking a break, could have been an easy win just by going, you made yourselves clear, we overstepped, and we will ensure to not use infringement models in the future. Merry
Menj a
Christmas. But
faszomba.
instead, a refusal to apologize and shifting blame onto us, Lamau. Why would Larian want
Mi?
to capitulate to this crowd? Why would they want to bend over backwards
Melyik
to
része
appease
volt
people
az,
that
hogy
project the worst intentions
bocsánatot
possible
kért?
onto them at every single turn? All that would do is just signal allegiance to some of the most bad faith actors online, people who do not care about
Ezt mondom, bazd meg, ott van a fogyatékos geci, bazd meg. Sehol nem volt szó arról, amit mondott.
Larian, do not care about their games, and don't even care about reality. One, who is us, and where exactly are they trying to shift the blame onto the audience in that response? These are the last people that Larian should ever try to appease, because this is the kind of crowd that survives on endless purity tests, constant filtering, cannibalizing, and turning on itself. Bending to that pressure will not resolve anything. All it's going to do is just guarantee more of the same treatment down the road. The smarter thing they can do right now is ignore that noise, listen to the people that are actually playing your games, keep the dialogue open, and keep making games that people want to play.
Így van.
Sven is absolutely right in his response, giving your developers agency, the ability to choose, to experiment, to try new technologies, and then just drop it if it doesn't help. This is how good studios operate. And look, I fully understand why people are so concerned about AI. I've talked about it at length before, especially in the context of PC hardware, the whole crisis that's going on over there right now, how these companies are using the explosive growth of this technology to dissolve ownership, consolidate wealth, buy up land, and cause real damage to the job market. Those are valid concerns, but this conversation is almost always framed as a false binary, this or that, all or nothing, with no space left in between, and that ignores two very important realities. First, we genuinely do not know how far this technology will evolve or where it's going to plateau. And second, the worst outcomes that we're seeing right now are not coming from the tools themselves, but from reckless, profit-driven expansion being pushed by billionaires and corporations at the top. Now, at least from my perspective, and I understand that there are going to be some people that are going to disagree with me on this. That's the best part about being able to watch a YouTube video. You guys get to see some different perspectives on things. I think that this always comes down to intent and implementation, especially in the games industry. It's not about what a company is using, it's about why they are using it. If a AAA studio's only goal is just to make the same game they've always made, just cheaper and faster, if their sole focus is just increasing their revenue at any cost, that mindset is going to show up in the final product, and that final product will likely fail. We have already seen this play out. Call of Duty Black Ops 7 is probably going to be the clearest example that we've ever seen of this. AI tools were not used to make a better game or to improve the working conditions of their developers. They were used to rush a product to market and sell smoke to their players. The writing suffered, the content suffered, even things like the generated AI calling cards and cosmetics are going to become emblematic of how hollow of an experience that game is. And now it's likely going to be one of the worst selling Call of Duties of all time, with an 82% sales drop on Steam and a hole that
Na ez
Activision
a
will
gáz.
likely not be able to climb out of. I mean, if we look at a lot of the criticisms that are being aimed at Expedition 33 right now, a lot of it's being centered on players discovering pre-generated asset holders, placement holders that weren't cleaned up before release. Things like flyers that were posted on the walls of Lumiere, scraps of old newspaper that were on the ground. And if you actually look at that game, you look at the world that Sandfall built, the story they told, the mechanical depth of that game, it's pretty obvious that those elements were not the point. And I know I'm being generous here.
Ez is egyébként, tudod, ez is kurva egyszerű. Ha jó a játék, le se fossák az emberek, hogy készült. Ilyen egyszerű.
But even if some of that use was intentional, it didn't meaningfully impact the final product. Expedition 33 is still one of the most beloved games this year, which kind of proves the point that if the intention, talent, and implementation are in the right place, well, these tools can help artists realize their vision instead of undermining it. We talk a
Így
lot on
van.
this channel about the rise
Köszönöm.
of AA and indie games, and we know how expensive and risky game development has become. And most of these developers take massive personal and financial risks just to even be able to get a game out the door. And most of these games fail. In 2025 alone, over 19,000 games released on Steam. My own Steam recap showed me that I had played
What?
70.
What the fuck? Azt a kurva ember. Több mint 19 000 játék csak ebbe az évbe Steamen. Bazd meg.
19,000 games released on Steam. My own Steam recap showed me that I had played 70 new games this year, which is a crazy number. Guys, I've been putting in some work, but that's not even 1% of the games that came out. A lot of that stuff is shovelware, sure, but there's also some great games that are buried in that pile that most people are never going to see. And as this market continues to get more competitive, as the bar
Mi bazd
continues to
meg?
rise, the scope, polish, and
Növekszik
ambition
a
expected
piac.
from a lot of these smaller teams is going to get borderline impossible without something there to be able to help them. Anything that can make them develop games faster, easier, or simply just make them more feasible to make, especially for teams that are trying to punch well above their weight and actually survive, they're going to need stuff like this. I
Ja,
still have plenty of concerns for AI. That hasn't changed. It probably never will. But I also see it as a tool that, in the hands of talented developers with the right intentions, it's going to let these guys reach far beyond what they'd normally be capable of. And if that means that I get better games, cheaper games, and more of them, then yeah, I'm going to be there for it. If you
így van, és az tuti, az 100%, hogy a Divinity 3 olcsóbb lesz, mint $70. Az tuti.
using AI lets these smaller teams compete with AAA or gives me more games like Expedition 33 or Larian's next project somehow tops Baldur's Gate 3, well, then I want to see what that's going to look like. I
Így
can't
van.
believe people would see Larian come forward saying, we're going to do an AMA. You're going to be able to talk to all of our departments, ask our artists or whoever else any questions you have about our process or what the next game is going to look like. And somehow people want to respond to that with, you're deflecting. How is that deflecting? It's so crazy how far people will reach for engagement on the internet today.
Érted, ha bármit is el akartak volna titkolni, akkor eleve nem rakják ki ezt a riportot az AI-ról. Miért akarnának bármi? Nincs olyan, amit el akarnak titkolni. Nincsen mit eltitkolniuk.
It's just too much for me, man. Especially because I would almost guarantee that the vast majority of the people that have been complaining about this entire thing with Baldur's Gate 3 or Expedition 33 likely never even played those games to begin with.
Így van. Azok nagy valószínűséggel mind az ilyen Blue Sky-ról jöttek, tudod, a tipikus kékhajú, orkarikás, dagadt, leszbikus, feminista kurvák, meg az idióta melegek, akik azt támogatják, hogy a gyerekeket át kéne operálni. Ugye? Bárki, aki ilyet mond, az azonnal az ellenségem.
You already know that's the case. You already know that's the case. The thing that I want to make clear is when it comes to a lot of these AI tools, I think that sometimes people might misunderstand me when I talk about certain subjects. And I have no problem with AI as a tool. I have every problem with the way that a lot of these companies have been implementing those tools, how the rollout and the expansion of this side of the industry has gone, how much it's affected the economy, definitely, and how much more it's going to affect the economy in the future, as well as what it's doing to hardware and whatnot like that. But as a tool, I don't have any problem with it. If it empowers developers to be able to make better games, so be it. If it doesn't, let them decide that and let them be the ones to throw it away. I don't think that we need any of this moral crusading going on, trying to push these people away from this stuff. if they feel like they're going to be able to find value in it to bring
Így van.
value to you. That's what my stance on it is. I feel
Tök mindegy, hogy ezek a fogyatékosok mit mondanak, mert a nap végén így is úgy is a felhasználó fog szavazni a pénztárcájával. És majd amikor kijön a Divinity 3, akkor meg majd megint mindenki le fogja szopni magát, ugyanúgy, mint a Baldur's Gate 3-tól.
the same way about a lot of different things. I mean, I feel the same thing about monetization in video games. I don't have a problem with microtransactions. I don't even have a problem with gacha games. All I care about is how you are using that income, how you are using those tools, that monetization, to be able to fuel a better product for the customer. Is it a fair exchange? If it's not, then we need to have that discussion, obviously. But if they're using these tools in the right way, if they're doing it to be able to try to bring us better games, then I'm all here for it. Aren't you? Cat just like jumped down on the table.
Yeah,
I just think it's crazy how fast this story got out of control. I think it's really damaging the way that some of these writers will dogpile on the topic of AI. There's not a single one of these guys that are interested in covering this topic with anything other than bad faith. It's going to be very difficult for you to be able to find a writer that's talking about AI in a positive sense, or even trying to weigh the benefits between the benefits and the negatives of the use of this technology. In most cases, especially in games media, because these are the guys that are struggling with it the most right now, because they're likely the ones that are going to be replaced before any other writers, to be honest with you. Especially when they're going out and they're not fully...
Ezek az emberek is, érted, meghallották az AI szót, ez volt nekik a trigger, és látod, ilyen fasságokat írogatnak, szándékosan félrevezető cikkeket adnak ki, hogy bevonzzák az embereket, mert ugye hamarosan kifutnak a munkából. Ugye az AI az nagyon nagy valószínűséggel át fogja venni ezeknek az embereknek a munkáját. Ilyen egyszerű.
Covering these topics the way they should, or correcting the story when they should. I don't know. Szánalmas. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe to this channel. I would definitely share this video, because I think this is really important context to make sure that other people know. There was a lot that was said here that was not said in any of the arguments against Larian Studios or even Sandfall, and it needs to be said. People need to know this information, and the fact that people don't know it is really upsetting to me, because I love these companies' games. I love their intentions. And I have a very strong feeling that they are looking out for the rest of us. So I'm going to look out for them. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe.
És látod, ez a különbség egy youtuber között, és egy journalist, egy kritikus között, hogy a youtuber az bemutatja azt, amit a kritikus összehordott, és bemutatja azt, hogy mi történt, hogy miről volt szó eredetileg. És ezek az emberek nem értik, hogy miért veszítik el a munkájukat. Ezek a kritikusok, ezek a journalistek. Úgyhogy Legendary Drops. Iratkozzatok fel rá, like, mert kurva jó videókat csinál. Én imádom. Úgyhogy legyen ennyi mára a videónézésből. Azt hitted, hogy elmegyek mi? Egy kis uncut? Nem megyek el még. Viszont nem tudom, melyiket kéne nyomni. Nyomjunk egy kis nyomjunk Onimusát. Mit szól? Legyen egy kis Onimusa. Így van, connect. Wow! Hallod? Egyébként, hadd mutassak valamit? Ismerek valakit, akinek van egy autókozmetikája. Én azért rákeresnék az interneten. Hm? Szóval ismerek valakit, akinek van egy autókozmetikája és autómosója, én rákeresnék az interneten. Miau.
Csillog az aszfalt, mint egy vadonatújlag kargó. Itt a hely, ahol ragyog minden karosszéria darab. Kosos a verdát, töröld le a bánatot. Habzó szivacs, mint felhőkkel, most minden átkod. Kárgó, kárgó, csillogjon a járgány. Kárgó, kárgó, tiszta lesz a bárvány. Fényes, mint a nap, ha mosunk nincs határ. Kárgó, kárgó, indul tisztán tovább. Jaj! Indul tisztán tovább. Jaj! Políroz a kéz, mint ékszert a mester. Minden autósztár lesz, villan a reflektor testtel. Illat, mint egy parfüm, friss az utastér. Kargó az otthon, ahol az autót megér. Habok között tánc, ahogy forog a kefék. Mint egy spanap a verdánnak, lazítanak a zenék. Kosszit nem marad, minden fotót törlünk. Kárgó a hely, ahol a járgányok örülnek. Kárgó, kárgó, csillogjon a járgány. Kárgó, kárgó, tiszta lesz a várvány. Fényes, mint a nap, ha mosunk nincs határ. Kárgó, kárgó, indul tisztán tovább. Yeah! Indul tisztán tovább. Yeah! Indul tisztán tovább. Yeah!
Na, meghozta a kedved ahhoz, hogy elvidd a kocsidat a mosodába? Én azért megnézném. Keressám rá. Ja, akkor átállítjuk a címet. Az hozzá. Vagy ezt most leállítjuk, és mindjárt újra is indítom. Úgyhogy nem menj messzire. Csinálok egy mentést. Aztán, ja, mehet akkor egy kis Onimusa 2. Pűsz.